Listen properly.
Hello everyone. Once again, we open the case file no one wants to talk about, but everyone needs to hear. This is the Footsack Files. Now, first of all, just a reminder, if you'd prefer rather to jump straight to the main story, please feel free. You can check it out where it starts at the timeline I've posted. But I promise, everything preceding the main story are worth sticking around for. Now, before we dive into today's explosive subject, and before we hand out today's Empty Skull Award, here's a quick reminder. I share a short excerpt from one of my books in every episode. If it leaves you wanting more, you can order a digital copy, a PDF copy of either book by simply emailing me at author.skulk@gmail.com. They're R75 each. That's R200 less than retail, or R125 for both. And every cent goes to the animal charity I support, which feeds and cares for feral fur babies who are completely dependent on human compassion to survive. A special thanks to the viewers who had ordered copies. I really appreciate it. Okay, and another quick reminder. The cap that I'm wearing, that's a beautiful cap, is up for grabs, and every cent also goes to the same worthy cause. Perfect for anyone who enjoys a bit of controversy and the occasional feather ruffling. Available in blue, light grey, dark grey and brown. They're just R175 each, plus R50 for delivery via the courier guy lockers. Want one? Just send me an email and I'll sort you out. Now, without further ado, here is this week's excerpt from my second book.
I stood by the embassy window, watching the crowd outside swell in numbers. Another day, another protest. The signs, the chanting, the stomping, I'd seen it all before. Working security at the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria had its moments, but today felt like just another day on the job. These protests had become routine. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I pulled it out. Kevin's name flashed on the screen. He was stationed at the entrance.
"We've got a situation,"
he said as soon as I answered.
"Crowd's bigger than usual, and I'm hearing some pretty heated stuff. You might want to come down here."
Got it. Be there in a minute. I hung up and started making my way downstairs. As I moved through the embassy, the sounds from outside grew louder. The chanting was in full swing, and Kevin was right. It felt different today. There was an edge to it, like something was simmering just below the surface. Pushing open the heavy door that led outside, I stepped into the bright sunlight and scanned the crowd. There had to be a few hundred people out there, maybe more. The grievances varied, as always. Today's protest was centered on the police shooting of Lindani Mayeni in Hawaii, which had stirred the South African public. However, it also seemed to encompass a range of other grievances: anger over racism, injustice, and a growing resentment toward the U.S. The embassy had seen its fair share of protests, and we were used to them. The Americans inside often watched with bemused detachment, unaccustomed to the way locals protested here, singing, dancing, and making a spectacle out of their anger. But today the crowd seemed more volatile, less focused on the usual routine of shouting grievances and handing over a memorandum.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that excerpt and are already emailing me your order. Now then, it's time to award the Empty Skull Award to the biggest empty skull who has truly outdone themselves in recent events. So, without further ado, the Empty Skull Award goes to none other than John Steenhuisen. In the previous episode, Panjaz al-Sufi walked away with the coveted honor of presiding over a water crisis that has turned basic survival into a daily struggle. But never let it be said that incompetence enjoys a monopoly. This week, John Steenhuisen earns the Empty Skull Award for presiding over yet another catastrophe: his handling of the foot and mouth disease crisis. Farmers were looking for leadership, urgency, and decisive action. What they got instead was hesitation, confusion, and the sinking feeling that they've been left to fend for themselves. So, for failing to do the job farmers desperately needed done, and for the turning a serious agricultural crisis into a disaster. And maybe also the fact that he has crept up so deeply into squirrel's stinking fat ass. John Steenhuisen is this week's worthy recipient of the empty skull. Right, now that we've got that out of the way, I want to thank you for the great response on the last episode. I wish I could show them all, but I've chosen a few comments that stood out. Again, if you'd rather jump straight to the main story, please feel free. Hannes de Beer said, I would have given the Empty Skull Award to John Caucasian. Well, Hannes, I think your wish may have been realized. Alan Gill said, just to correct you, Dean is Minister of Public Works. It is Leon Schreiber that is Home Affairs. Thanks for pointing that out, Alan. A tribute to maybe a dumb blonde moment. And my apologies to Dean McPherson for comparing him to Leon Schreiber. It was an unintentional insult. Craig Bennett said, this is serious and need to be investigated. It puts all refugee applicants in danger of ANC prosecution. Fritz said, they make sure they get you before you leave the country. Marbaker said, Lesofie telling us of his solution to water shortages is like the famous comment of, let them eat cake. Colin McKenzie said, the ANC knows it can't win the next election, so they've recruited a few high-up DA members to stay in power. We'd love to know what they have on Caucasian, who is busy selling out our farmers. Mervyn Stemmert said, so happy to realize that you support the Republic of the Cape. Well, Mervyn, I support it so strongly that I feel I should be the chairman of that committee. Andy Q said, enough with the stupid AI voices. Andy, how can you say that Special Agent Hunter McCullum has a stupid voice? I'm deeply shocked. Horse 3955 said, you are a schmoze. Well, coming from a horse, I suppose I should consider it a compliment. Just not sure what a schmoze is. Or maybe it's better that I don't know. All right, that's as far as the comments go for today. Please remember, I actually do read every single one. And I really appreciate you taking your precious time to share your thoughts. So, please keep them coming. Now, at last you'll say, let's get into today's episode. The following is not a conspiracy theory. It is a dangerous reality of South Africa's government VIP protection criminals. And what you're about to see is shocking and chilling and impossible to ignore. We call them the VIP protection services, but they behave more like a lawless criminal gang operating with impunity. By the end of this video, you'll see why ordinary South Africans fear and loathe them, and why this could be one of the biggest threats to rule of law in this country today. On the night of January 28, 2026, on a quiet stretch of the R80 near Hercules, Pretoria, a South African Air Force sergeant was executed in cold blood. Not in a war zone, not in the middle of a robbery, but during a traffic stop. A traffic stop by VIP bodyguards. Unmarked black BMW SUV. One flashing blue light. No siren. No official markings. They forced his car to stop. And when he approached their car, clearly unarmed and not posing any threat whatsoever, he was shot through the open window, in the head. He died instantly. His wife and 2 children watched in horror. And then they just drove off. They left a traumatized woman and her 2 small children beside the road, alone, without even attempting to check if their victim was still alive or needed medical assistance. These savages were the bodyguards of, listen carefully, the executive mayor of Madibeng municipality, the Honorable Douglas Maimane. So, how could bodyguards have the right to stop a civilian for what appeared to be a missing rear number plate? How could someone be murdered for something as trivial as that? And it makes you wonder if maybe the killing was racially motivated, just like the shocking number of farm attacks in this country. What also makes me wonder is whether the buffoon in the rear seat, the executive mayor, ordered them to pull over. And then, when he saw what they did, calmly instructed them to drive off because, well, he was probably late and he was tired and just wanted to go to bed. Never mind the trivial issue of leaving a murder crime scene that he probably caused. And just to be clear, I made a deliberate effort not to present only my side of this shocking incident. I reached out to the executive mayor Maimane at the Madibeng local municipality, requesting their comment and giving them a fair opportunity to explain their side of the story. Well, the response I received was, unfortunately, exactly what I expected. Still, I held on to the unrealistic hope that they might surprise me, but in the end, they didn't. They were given the opportunity to respond and chose. Let this once again sink in. A sergeant of the South African Air Force executed, not by robbers, not by gangsters, but by local government VIP protection bodyguards. Now, I ask you, how can anyone be surprised that more than 2,000 South African minorities have already fled the country where human life is regarded as cheap and dispensable by armed government-authorized killers? And we all know by now this is not an isolated incident. In 2023, a different VIP protection unit attached to South Africa's empty-skulled deputy president was caught in Canberra brutally assaulting, coincidentally, also members of the SANDF on a national highway. Well, just to refresh your memories, check out the footage of this barbaric attack once again.
Honey, look what's happening here. Lord, come on!
Now you know what they did? They disturbed them. This one they can kill you. This one they will kill you. I don't know. There's cops. These ones. You see?
And you know what happened? Despite public outrage, despite clear footage, the internal SAPS disciplinary process acquitted them. Just like I predicted in my book. No punishment, no accountability. Let's be clear. These aren't random private bodyguards. These are armed members of official protection services acting in the name of government power. And the police internal disciplinary process has repeatedly cleared politically connected officers. VIP protection in South Africa isn't just some small program. It's a multi-million rand operation that drains funds from real policing and public safety. Basically, buffoons in back seats of luxury black SUVs, believing and pretending they are important while actually being insignificant nobodies. Sorry, Executive Mayor of Madibeng, but that's just the truth. This isn't just about one tragic death. This is about a power structure that has become above the law. Politicians, VIPs, their killer bodyguards, free to harass, intimidate, even kill without real consequences. They are symptoms of a system that tolerates and even enables the unchecked violence of those closest to power. My hope is that the killers of this sergeant face real justice. Unfortunately, the only justified sentence in my view would have been the death sentence, just like the one they brazenly dispensed to a father of two. I sincerely hope the AfriForum's private prosecution unit keeps a close eye on this case to ensure the killers aren't let off the hook through corrupt government intervention, and that they will also assist the family of the sergeant in a massive civil suit against the Maribeng local government. Now, if the rule of law matters to you and justice means something, help expose this, share this video, ask questions, demand accountability. Because as long as VIP killer bodyguards can act without consequence, any one of us could be next. Please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the